You are watching GSMDZ channel. Welcome to Current Affairs Showtime with Chetan Gaurav. Hello and welcome to Current Affairs Show. Let us begin the program with the top stories that unfolded this week in the headlines. Union Finance Ministry unveils the National Infrastructure Pipeline project in accordance with the vision to make India a $5 trillion economy by 2024-25. National Infrastructure Pipeline will include both economic and the social infrastructure projects, ensuring that the projects are adequately prepared and launched. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs releases the result of Swatch Sarvekshan League 2020. League is a quarterly cleanliness assessment of the cities and towns in India conducted under Swatch Sarvekshan since its launch. Indore and Jamshedpur have topped in the cleanliness chart, while Kolkata is ranked at the bottom. 107th Indian Science Congress held at the University of Agricultural Sciences in Bengaluru, Karnataka. Science and Technology Rural Development was the theme for this year. Iran completely withdrawn from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action nuclear deal. The announcement came after the US troops killed the top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, the commander of the Al-Quds forces of Iran. 16th Pravasiya Bharatiya Divas celebrated on 9th of January. The Pravasiya Bharatiya Divas is celebrated to recognize the overseas Indians who have contributed towards the development of India. This Divas is celebrated since 2003 every year. And before we begin with the news bulletin, there is an important information for all the aspirants. Students are requested to join our Telegram channel GSMDZ for downloading the monthly compilation of current affairs, daily newspaper analysis, and the other relevant materials for their preparation. The link is also posted in the description box of the video. Now let's begin with the news bulletin in detail. So the first news is regarding the Swatch Sarvekshan League 2020. Swatch Sarvekshan League is basically conducted in 3 quarters, that is from April to June, the first one, July to September, the second one, and the October-December, the third one. What is the major objective of this particular league? Just to sustain on-ground performance of the different cities and the towns, along with the monitoring when it comes to the cleanliness. Now, Swatch Sarvekshan 2020 is basically the 5th edition of the annual urban cleanliness survey, which is conducted by the ministry. Now, what are the various performance of the various states? Like when you talk about the cleanest city, Indore was the 4th time in a row has got the first position under this particular league. When we talk about the worst performer, Bhopal is standing at the 2nd position, Surat at the 3rd position in the first quarter results, that is from April to June. And remember one thing, both these towns, the Bhopal and the Surat, they are having the population of greater than 10 lakh. This is the first category under which the performers of the different states and the, you can say, the towns and the cities have been ranked. Rajkot at the 2nd position, Navi Mumbai at the 3rd position, Vadodara at the 4th in the second quarter results, that is from between July to September. In the second quarter, Vadodara will be followed by the Bhopal, Ahmedabad, Nasik, Greater Mumbai, Allahabad and Lucknow. Remember one thing, all these are the worst performers, you can say. When we talk about the cleanliness city, it is the Indore, right? So Indore from the 4 consecutive times is standing at the first position in terms of the cleanliness. Now, among the cantonment boards, Tamil Nadu's St. Thomas Mount Cant, that is standing at the first position in the first quarter, whereas the Delhi Cant, it is the first in the second quarter. Secunderabad cantonment board in the Hyderabad is the worst performer among the other cantonment boards. Now, one thing I should tell you that many students must be asking about to learn the performance of the various states. Generally, UPSC is not concerned in asking the performance of the various states in the different type of, you can say, the indexes which have been published, especially this Swatch Sarvekshan League, right? Because a lot of data will be published. So, but what I will suggest from my end that at max, you can at least go through the list once, right? Just try to recall the names when it is asked in the examination, not necessary to be learned by heart. Now, let's talk about the Swatch Sarvekshan. The process of ranking the cities and the towns of India, it is on the basis of cleanliness, was first conducted in 2016, which covered approximately 73 cities. The second and the third round of the surveys in 2017 and 2018 widened this coverage of the assessment to 434 cities, having the population of 1 lakh and the above, and approximately 4,200 cities respectively. So this is something, a small detail regarding the Swatch Sarvekshan. Let me tell you one more thing. Swatch Sarvekshan League is basically conducted under this Swachh Sarvekshan Abhiyan only, right? So this particular league is being conducted, and remember one thing, it is being conducted in 3 quarters, right? That is the most important thing which you need to remember from the examination perspective. Now, what are the objectives of Swachh Sarvekshan? See, the annual cleanliness survey basically aims to encourage the large-scale participation of the citizens of the country in the cleanliness drive. It also aims to ensure the sustainability of the initiatives taken towards the garbage-free and the open defecation-free cities. It also aims to create an awareness among all the sections of the society regarding the importance of the working together towards making the towns and the cities a better place to live in. So these are some major objectives of Swachh Sarvekshan Abhiyan. The next news is regarding the National Infrastructure Pipeline Project. The Union Finance Ministry has unveiled Rs 102 lakh crores National Infrastructure Pipeline Project in accordance with the government's vision to make India a $5 trillion economy by 2024-25. The Finance Ministry had basically set up a task force which is headed by the Economic Affairs Secretary just to prepare the roadmap for this particular project starting from 2019-20 to 2024-25 under Rs 100 lakh crores infrastructure plan. Certain sector specific you can say allocations have been given under this particular project, like the irrigation and the rural infrastructure projects will account for approximately Rs 7.7 lakh crores each. Rs 3 lakh crore would be spent on the industrial infrastructure. Rest the amount will be given to the agriculture and the social infrastructure. The roads projects will also be covered under this particular project that will account somewhere around 19.6 lakh crores, while another 13.6 lakh crores would be for the railway projects. Again, you need not to remember these figures. Just for the sake of information, I am giving you the sector specific details which have been outlined by the Government of India. What different type of projects they are going to take under this National Infrastructure Pipeline. Port projects will also be there, which will be having a spending of rupees approximately 1 lakh crores. Airport will also be there, approximately again 1.43 lakh crores. Rupees 16 lakh crores would be spent on the urban infrastructure and rupees 3 lakh crores were on the telecom projects, right? According to the sector-wise breakups of the projects which is made by the Finance Ministry, rupees 24.54 lakh crore investments will flow in the energy sector. Rupees 11 lakh crores would be just in the power sector alone, right? Now we are going to talk about the National Infrastructure Pipeline Project and its significance, right? It is estimated that India would need to spend $4.5 trillion on infrastructure by 2030 to sustain its growth rate. The rate at which it is growing, if you want to sustain it, you need to spend this amount of money on the infrastructure projects by 2030. The endeavor of National Infrastructure Pipeline is to make this happen in an efficient manner. So this is the first step which is taken by the Government of India in sustaining the growth rate of India. And Government of India has now started focusing on that how much money, or you can say the maximum money, should be spent on the infrastructure projects. Now, from where the funding will come? Central government and the state governments will be having an equal share of 39% each in National Infrastructure Pipeline Project. The private sector, on the other hand, will be having 22% of the share, which the government expects to increase to 30% by the end of the year 2025. National Infrastructure Pipeline will also ensure that the infrastructure projects are adequately prepared and launched in a phased manner in the country. Every ministry, every department will be responsible for monitoring of all the projects so as to ensure their timely, you can say, the implementation and within the cost. Because you know that if any project is being implemented, if it is being delayed, right, what happens after few years, the project cost increases because of the inflation, because of many changes. The you can say the construction cost has increased, the material cost has increased, as a result of which overall project cost increases. So every department, every ministry will be responsible for monitoring of the projects just to ensure that their timely implementation should be there and that should be within the cost. It will also help in stepping up the annual infrastructure achievement to the gross domestic product of 5 trillion by 2024 and 25, which is one of the visions of this particular government also. Now, why there is a need for the infrastructure funding? See, the availability of quality infrastructure is a prerequisite to achieve the broad-based and inclusive growth on a sustainable basis in India. Investment in the infrastructure is also necessary for sustaining the high growth rate of India. The next news is regarding the merchant discount rate. This was recently in news. So what exactly the word MDR means, right? Also this question has been asked in one of your prelims examination. So it is a fee which is being charged from a merchant by a particular bank for accepting the payments from the customers through the credit cards and the debit cards in the establishment. MDR compensates the card issuing banks, the lender which puts the POS terminals and a payment gateways as a MasterCard or a Visa card for these services. The MDR charges are usually shared in a pre-agreed proportion between the bank and a merchant, and it is always expressed in the percentage of the transaction amount. From January onwards, especially 2020 January onwards, all the companies having a turnover of rupees 50 crore or more need to provide the facility of payment through the RuPay debit card or the UPI QR code to their customers, under which no MDR fee will be charged from the customers as well as from the merchants. So this is a step which has been taken by the government of India just to promote more and more digital transactions in the country. You should remember from the examination perspective what is the meaning of merchant discount rate. Though this question has already been asked in your UPSC Civil Services Prelims examination, but again in any other form they can again ask you. The next news is regarding the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. This particular scheme was launched in 2014. It is basically a village development project under which every member of parliament will be taking a responsibility for the development, the physical and the institutional infrastructure in 3 villages by 2019. It was expected that every member of the parliament will actually take care of 3 villages by 2019 for their development. Their physical development should be there, their institutional infrastructure development should be there in those 3 villages. The goal was to develop the 3 Adarsh Gram or a model villages by the March 2019, of which 1 would be achieved by 2016 itself. Thereafter, 5 such Adarsh Gram, 1 per year, will be selected and developed by 2024. The project was also launched on the occasion of the birth anniversary of Lok Nayak Jai Prakash Narayan. What is the implementation of the scheme? How the scheme will be implemented at the ground level? The scheme will be implemented through the village development plan that would be prepared to identify the Gram Panchayat with a special focus on enabling the every poor households to come out of the poverty. The constituency fund, that is MP LATs, would be available to fill the critical financing gaps in the village area for their proper development. The planning process in every village will be participatory exercise that will be coordinated by the district collector, your IAS officer. The member of the parliament will also play a very active role in facilitating in this particular exercise. The adoption and the adaptation of the technology, the introduction of the innovations, they are very much critical to this program. That different type of technological applications like space application, remote sensing, mobile based technology, monitoring, agricultural technology, etc. all these things will be taken care of while implementing this particular exercise. At a state level, there will be a committee. It's an empowered committee that will be headed by the Chief Secretary of the state, consisting the relevant departments who will be involved in the overall development of the villages, right? All the departments will be there, including the experts also. As required, at least 2 civil society representatives will also be there. The district collector will be the nodal officer for the implementation of this Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. The member of the parliament concerned will also chair the review meetings. Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana basically gives the focus to the community participation. The more and more participation should be there from the village people. Social mobilization of the village community can actually trigger the chain of other development activities in the village, because it is the people who are living in the village area will be much more in a better position to tell what are their needs, what actually they want, what development activities should be taken with respect to their villages, right? So these things can only be done when the social mobilization of the village community will be there, right? So basically the main focus for this particular Yojana was to the community participation. If community will participate, there will be a lot of development in their villages. The next news is regarding the Supreme Court, who has bats against the transfer of the community resources. Recently, the Supreme Court of India has held that the government has no right to transfer the invaluable community resources like village water ponds to any powerful people and the industrialists for the commercialization of the property. See, valuable community resources, the government has no power to transfer those to the anyone, right? But when we talk about to the invaluable community resources like the village water ponds, जिसको हम लोग हिंदी में कुआं बोलते हैं, if these such type of invaluable community resources are there, still the government has no power to transfer them to any powerful people or to any industrialist for the commercialization of that particular property. Now, why this issue came into front? The judgment came on the plea against the transfer of the village pond sites in the Saini village in the national capital region, that is in Delhi, to some private industrialist by the Greater Noida Industrial Development Authority. So this was the decision which was taken by the Supreme Court. Now, what are the observations with regard to this made by the court? The protection of the such village commons is essential to safeguard the fundamental rights which are being guaranteed under the Article number 21 of the Constitution. These common areas, they are the lifeline of the village communities, and they often sustain the various course and provides the resources necessary for the life. Hence, you have no right to transfer these resources to any powerful people or the industrialists. This is what the Supreme Court said. Further, the state cannot even divest the villagers of their existing source of water, even if they are being promised that they are going to get an alternative site where the water body can be replicated. This will also be not tolerated. Such an attitude basically displays the mechanical application of the environmental protection. There is no guarantee that the adverse effect of destroying the existing water body would be offset and the people would be compelled to travel miles to access the alternative site. So many things can happen. So this was one of the decisions which was taken by the Supreme Court. The next news coming from your science and technology field, Gagarin Mission. The ISRO chairman has finally announced in the press briefing about the 4 astronauts. They are going to be selected for the country's first manned mission to the space called Gagarin. ISRO aims to launch its maiden human space mission Gagarin before the 75th anniversary of India's independence in 2022. Now, what are the objectives of this mission? Enhancement of science and technology levels in the country. A national project involving the several institutes, academia and industries will be there. There will be an improvement of the industrial growth. I will just let you know that how the industrial growth will be improved upon. It will also inspire the youth, the coming generation, development of technology for the social benefits, improving the international collaborations. These are some objectives of this mission. Further moving on, what is the relevance of this manned space mission for India? Like boost to industries. Now, how industries will get a boost by this mission? The Gagarin mission is expected to source nearly 60% of its equipment from the Indian private sector only. So the industries will find a very large and a huge opportunity through participation in the highly demanding space missions. So these industries are actually going to give the equipments to the ISRO, and this particular mission is expected to source nearly 60% of its total equipment from the Indian private sector only. When it comes to the employment, as per the ISRO chief, the Gagarin mission would also create 15,000 new employment opportunities in India. 13,000 of them will be there in the private industry, and the space organization would need an additional manpower of 900 people. When you talk about the technological development, human space flights are the frontier fields in the science and technology. The challenges the human space flights provide to the India and the benefits which are coming from taking up those missions will be very high, and that will lead further thrust for the technological developments in India. There will be a research and a development. This particular mission is also going to boost a good research and the technology development in India. When you talk about the motivation, it is going to inspire all the youth and the coming generation and also the national public mainstream. It would inspire the young generation into a notable achievement and enable them to play their legitimate role in challenging the future activities. When we talk about the prestige, yes, India will be the 4th country to launch such human space mission. Gagarin will not only bring about the prestige to the nation, but also establish the India's role as a key player in the space industry. So these are some benefits or the merits or the relevance, you can say, the importance of this Gagarin mission or the manned space mission for India. The next news is regarding the Money app. Reserve Bank of India has launched the mobile app called as Money for the visually challenged people to identify the currency note. Visually challenged people, the Divyangjans. The application also works offline once it's been installed. The application can scan the currency notes using the camera of the mobile phone. It also gives the audio output in Hindi and English. So this is a small news coming from the Reserve Bank of India. The mobile application Money, which has been installed, basically created for the visually challenged people just to identify the currency notes. Once it has been installed, it can work offline also without the usage of internet. The next news is regarding the first of its kind Turtle Rehab Center, which has come up in Bihar. The first of its kind rehabilitation center for the freshwater turtles will be inaugurated in Bihar's Bhagalpur Forest Division in January 2020. The rehab center is spreading over the half of the hectare, will be sheltering approximately 500 turtles at a time. The need to build such a center was felt after several turtles were found severely wounded and sick when they were being rescued from smuggles by the rescue teams. So after that, the first of its kind, the Turtle Rehab Center, has been established in Bhagalpur, which is a place in Bihar. The next news is regarding the Sena Spectabilis. It is a deciduous tree which is native to the tropical areas of America. This tree basically grows up to 15 to 20 meters in a very short span of time and distributes thousands of its seeds after flowering. Now, why it is of concern for us? It is an invasive species. Now, what is the meaning of the word invasive species? Invasive species is an organism that causes an ecological or an economic harm in a new environment where it is not a native. Means that particular organism is not belonging to that new area, but it is causing an ecological or the economic harm. So that such kind of species are called as invasive species. So this deciduous tree is also an invasive species. Now, why it is a concern? The thick foliage of this tree basically arrests the growth of the other indigenous tree and a grass species. Thus, it causes the food shortage for the wildlife population, especially the herbivores. It also adversely affects the germination and the growth of the native species who are living over there. This particular deciduous tree has been categorized as a least concern under the IUCN Red List. Now, this particular tree is a native to the tropical areas of America. Why we are studying over here? Because the Kerala government is planning to arrest the rampant growth of the Sena Spectabilis, which is a deciduous tree, in the forest areas of Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, including the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. That means this particular native species of a tree is also found in India, where in the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. And recently the Kerala government is now planning to arrest the rampant growth, the rapid growth of this particular deciduous invasive species of a tree, which is basically native to the tropical areas of America. The next news is regarding the 107th Indian Science Congress. So it was held at University of Agriculture Sciences in Bengaluru, Karnataka. This year the theme was Science and Technology Rural Development. Indian Science Congress is organized by the Indian Science Congress Association every year in the first week of January. Now let's study something about the Indian Science Congress Association. The Indian Science Congress Association was started in the year 1914 in Kolkata and has a membership of more than 30,000 scientists. When we talk about the objective of this association, to advance and promote the cause of science in India, to hold an annual congress at a suitable places in India, to publish such proceedings, journals, transactions and other publications as may be considered desirable, right? So these are some objectives of the Indian Science Congress. To secure and manage the funds endowments for the promotion of the science, including the rights of disposing or selling all or any portion of the properties of association, to do and perform or all other acts, matter and the things they are conductive to or incidental to or necessary for the above objects, right? So just remember one thing in a very short. This year, which version it was the 107th. Second important point, where it was held in Bengaluru, Karnataka, where in the University of Agriculture Sciences. Next important thing, what was the theme for this year? Science and Technology Rural Development. Who basically organized the same? It is organized by the Indian Science Congress Association, basically started in 1914 in Kolkata, having a membership of more than 30,000 scientists. That's all you need to remember from this particular news. for your examination perspective. The next news is regarding the zonal councils. The 25th meeting of the zonal, or you can say the Western Zonal Council, will be held in January 2020. This time Maharashtra will lead the coordinator for the same. Now, this is not so important for us. For the examination perspective, what we need to remember about the zonal councils. First question, which may be asked in the examination, zonal councils are the constitutional bodies. Remember one thing, they are not the constitutional bodies. They are not the constitutional bodies, but they are the statutory bodies. When we talk about the statutory bodies, it means what? They have been established by the Act of a Parliament. Which Act? The State Reorganization Act of 1956. One thing more, these councils, they are only a deliberative and the advisory bodies. That means they can only advise the concerned states falling in their respective zones what to do and what not to do. We'll study about their functions, but as of now you should remember they are the only deliberative and the advisory bodies. What is the aim of the same? Just to promote the interstate cooperation and coordination, right? So between the two states, there should be a proper cooperation and a coordination should be there. Now, another question which can be asked are the how many type of zonal councils are there? There are 5 zonal councils. First one, Northern Zonal Council, consisting of the states of like Haryana, Himachal, Jammu, Punjab, Rajasthan, NCR, Delhi and UT of Chandigarh, right? Central Zonal Council comprising of the states like Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. When we talk about the Eastern Zonal Council, the states of Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha and West Bengal. Western Zonal Council, the states like Goa, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Union Territory of Daman and Diu and Dadra Nagar and Haveli. When we talk about the Southern Zonal Council, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Union Territory of Puducherry. Now, in the examination generally, UPSC is not concerned in asking that in which zone, which of the following states or the union territories are lying. But again, for your sake of, to be on a safer side, you can say, just have a look of the names of these states and keep on revising it, or you will be, after few days, you will be ending up in learning all the names automatically, right? You do not have to keep on seeing these things again and again after some time, when you will be having the, you can say that you will be learning all these names once you have already completed it, right? जब एक बार आप पूरा पढ़ लेंगे, आपको याद हो जाएगा, तो आने वाले टाइम में फिर आपको दोबारा याद करने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, right? The most important thing, it is that the northeastern states, the northeastern states like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Tripura, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Nagaland, they are not included in the zonal councils, and their special problems are looked after by the Northeastern Council, which is set up under the Northeastern Council Act of 1972. So please remember, this is an exception which you need to remember. This is the most important thing from the examination perspective. Now, when we talk about the composition of the same, when we talk about the chairman, Union Home Minister is always the chairperson of each of these councils. Vice chairperson, the chief ministers of the states included in each zone, they are acting as the vice chairman of the zonal councils for that zone by rotation, each holding the office for a period of 1 year at a time. So this time, the chief minister of Maharashtra will be there, right, as a vice president for the Western Zonal Council. For how many years? For the upcoming 1 year. When we talk about the members of the same, chief ministers and the 2 other ministers as nominated by the governor from the each of the states, and the 2 members from the union territories are included in the zone. Advisors, 1 person is nominated by Niti Aayog. Erstwhile we were having planning commission, right? For each of the zonal councils, chief secretaries of the respective states and the officers of the development commissioners nominated by each of the states included in that particular zone. The union ministers are also invited to participate in the meetings of the zonal councils depending upon their necessity. If it is required, they will be called upon. If it is not, then they will not be the part of the meeting. Now, what are the major objectives of setting up the zonal councils? First of all, bringing out the national integration, just to show the world that we are united together. Arresting the growth of the acute state consciousness, regionalism, linguism and particularistic tendencies. Enabling the center and the state governments to cooperate and exchange the ideas and experiences. establishing a climate of the cooperation amongst the states for the successful and the speedy execution of the development projects which are running in their respective states and the union territories, whether started by the central government or by the respective state governments. The next news is regarding the Iran nuclear deal. Iran finally has withdrawn from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action nuclear deal. This announcement came from the Iran after the US troops have killed their General Qasem Soleimani. Iran has agreed to rein in its nuclear program in 2015, which was a deal struck with the US, UK, Russia, China, France and Germany. So many countries were involved in finalizing this particular nuclear deal with the Iran. Under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Tehran agreed to significantly cut its stores of the centrifuges, enriched uraniums and heavy water. These all are the key components for the making of the nuclear weapon. This particular plan of action established the joint commission also, with the negotiating parties all represented, to monitor the implementation of the agreement, whether that Tehran is following what they have said or not. They are going to cut short the storage of the centrifuges, they are going to cut short the storage of the enriched uraniums and the heavy water. All these components are being used for the making of the nuclear weapon. Now, why did Iran agree to this particular deal in 2015? Remember one thing, it had been hit with the most devastating economic sanctions by the United Nations, the United States and the European Union that are estimated to have cost it tens of the billions of the pounds a year are lost in the oil export revenues. Billions of you can say in the overseas assets have also been frozen. Seeing all these things, Iran agreed to this particular deal way back in 2015. Why US has pulled out of the deal? The first person or the first country to pull out itself from the deal was the US only. So the current president of the US, that is Donald Trump, and the opponents to the deal says that this particular deal has flawed and it gives the Iran access to the billions of the dollars, but does not address the Iran's support for the groups like the US considers the terrorist. So Iran is supporting certain groups to which the US considered them as a terrorist, and this issue has not been addressed in this deal. This is what the America has claimed this year, as a result of which America decided that they are going to pull out from this deal first. Now, which are those terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, which has been supported by the Iranian people, but US considered these groups as a terrorist group. They noted also does not curb the Iran's development of the ballistic missiles, and the deal phases out by 2030. They say that Iran has lied about its nuclear program in the past also. So these were the certain reasons which were being given by the US. That's why the US has pulled out of the deal. Now, from our examination perspective, what is the implication of the same for India? First of all, on oil and the gas sector. The impact on the world oil prices will be immediately visibly impact. Iran is present in India's third biggest supplier after Iraq and Saudi Arabia, and any increase in the prices will both hit the inflation level in India as well as the Indian rupee. It would also impact the development of Chahabar port, which is being developed by the India in the Iran. It is also going to impact the INSTC, International South Trade Corridor. It will affect these plans, especially if any of the countries along the route or the banking or the insurance companies which are dealing with the INSTC plan also decide to adhere to the US restrictions on trade with the Iran. So this will also be badly affected. When we talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, China may consider inducting Iran into the SCO. And if the proposal will be accepted by the SCO, which is led by the China and Russia, India will become a member of a bloc that will be seen as an anti-American and will run a counter to some of the government's initiatives like Indo-Pacific Quadrilateral with the US, Australia and Japan, which is also known as Quad. Now, what are the global implications of this particular deal? First implication would be there will be a downtrend in the global economy. Fuel prices would reach to the high points once again. Iran may block the Strait of Hormuz, which is a strategic choke point, which in turn would affect the global trade. Giant economy like India, China, Russia will also suffer. US may also cancel the airlines from the US to India because they pass over the Iran, which would affect the airspace industry also. So these are the certain global implications of this Iran nuclear deal, where Iran has finally decided that they are going to withdraw themselves from this particular agreement. The next news is regarding the project NETR. Indian Space Research Organization has inked a pact with the Indian Institute of Astrophysics to pave a way for the collaboration in establishment of an optical telescope facilities under the project NETR for tracking the space objects. So this is the most important thing. What is a project NETR? Started by the ISRO, right? And for what? For the development of an optical telescope facilities for tracking of the space objects. Now, what exactly this project is all about? NETR means Network for the Space Object Tracking and Analysis. This is the full form of NETR. Please remember this. Under the project, the ISRO basically plans to put up many observational facilities like connected radars, telescopes, data processing units, and the control center. They can, among other spots, also spots, track and catalog objects as small as 10 centimeter up to a range of 3400 kilometer and equal to the space orbit of around 2000 kilometers. What is the significance of this project? The project will actually give the India its own capability in space situational awareness like the other space powers, which is used to predict the threats from the debris to the Indian satellites. There is a lot of debris which is there in the space, so there will be a proper threat from the debris to the Indian satellites. This can be predicted using this particular, you can say, the space object tracking and the analysis. Now, NET's eventual goal is to capture the that is your GEO, or the geostationary orbit, which is seen at a 36,000 kilometers where the communication satellites are being operating. The efforts would also make the India as a part of an international efforts towards tracking, warning about the mitigating the space debris. What is the currently the need of the same? Currently, there are 15 functional Indian communication satellites which are working in the geostationary orbits of 36,000 kilometers, 13 remote sensing satellites in the low Earth orbit of up to 2000 kilometers, and 8 navigation satellites in the medium Earth orbits. Space junk means the space debris, you can say, is an ever growing problem in this particular industry, with more than 7,500 tons of an redundant hardware which is moving or circling around the Earth these days, ranging from the old rocket bodies and the defunctioned spacecrafts through the screws and even the fleck of paints. This material poses a collision hazards to the other operational missions which are going to be taken care of in the upcoming time. So this is about the project NETR. The next news is regarding the Bhitarkanika census on the saltwater crocodiles. Bhitarkanika census finds an increase of 15 saltwater crocodiles from last year. This is not so important from the examination perspective. What is important that there are 3 species of crocodiles in India: saltwater, mugger and gharial. Let's study about the same. Mugger. The mugger crocodile, which is also called as the Indian crocodile or a marsh crocodile, is found throughout the Indian subcontinent. It is being listed in the vulnerable category by the IUCN. The mugger is mainly a freshwater species and found in lakes, rivers and the marshes. Further, we talk about the gharial. The gharial, or the fish-eating crocodile, is a native to the Indian subcontinent. It is listed as a critically endangered by the IUCN. So mugger was basically listed as vulnerable category. This is listed as critically endangered. Small release populations are present and increasing in the rivers of the National Chambal Sanctuary, Katarnia Ghat Wild Sanctuary, Son River Sanctuary, and the rainforest biome of the Mahanadi in Satkosia Gorge Sanctuary in Odisha. So these are the some areas where you will find the population of the gharial crocodile. Saltwater crocodile, it is the largest of all the living reptiles. It is listed as the least concern by the IUCN. It is found throughout the east coast of India. So when you visit to the east coast of India, you will find a lot of saltwater crocodile. So this is about the 3 different types of crocodiles which are found in Indian subcontinent also. You should remember about all these 3 from the examination perspective. The next news is regarding the 8th schedule. The 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which talks about the scheduled languages, including the Tulu in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Tulu is a textbook example of a linguistic discrimination. Tulu is basically a Dravidian language whose speakers are being concentrated in the two coastal districts of Karnataka and in Kasargod district of Kerala. So these are the areas where you will find the people who have been speaking this particular Dravidian language, which is known as Tulu. The Kasargod district is also called Saptabhasha Samgam Bhumi, the confluence of seven language, and Tulu is also one among the seven. The census report says that approximately you can say 18,46,427 native speakers of Tulu are there in India. The Tulu speaking peoples are large in number than the speakers of Manipuri and Sanskrit, which have the 8th schedule status. So Manipuri and Sanskrit, they have been added into the 8th schedule, but Tulu has not been added. Efforts are being made to include this particular language also in the 8th schedule, and if this would be added, this would get a recognition from the Sahitya Academy. Further, Tulu books can also be translated into the other recognized Indian languages. The member of the parliaments, the MLAs, could also speak in the Tulu in the parliament and their respective state assemblies. Even the candidates, they will also be able to write all India competitive examinations like civil services exam in the Tulu language. Now, when we talk about the linguistic diversity of India, on the basis of language, what is the language diversity of India? India is having 30 languages. It is as per the 2001 census, not the 2011 census, right? So 2001 census, India has 30 languages that are spoken by more than 1 million people each. Additionally, it is having 122 languages that is spoken by at least 10,000 people each. It has also 1600 languages approximately, most of which are dialects in nature. These are restricted to the specific regions, and many of them, they are on the verge of extinction. India must accommodate this plethora of languages in its cultural disclosure and the administrative apparatus also. Further, what is the right to conserve these particular dialects? Article number 29 of the Indian Constitution provides the sections of the citizens having a distinct languages, script or the culture, or have the right to conserve the same. This is what the article number 29 talks about. So people of India, the sections of the citizens, if they are having a distinct language, any script or the culture, they have a complete right to conserve the same. The 8th schedule to the Constitution of India listing the official languages of the Republic of India. And as per the article number 344, 1 and 351 of the Indian Constitution, the 8th schedule includes the recognition of the following 22 languages. So this is a kind of a background from your political aspect, from the Indian polity aspect, that what does the 8th schedule talks about, what does the article number 29 talks about, or the article number 344 subclause 1 and 351 talks about. The next news is regarding the Indian Data Relay Satellite System. Once again, the news coming from the science and technology background. India plans to ring its own area of the space-to-space tracking and the communication of its space assets this year by putting up some new satellite series which is called as Indian Data Relay Satellite System. IDRSS is planned to track and be constantly in touch with the Indian satellites, in particular the low Earth orbits which have limited coverage of the Earth. It will actually be a set of satellite that is going to track, send and receive the information from other Indian satellites. IDRSS satellites will be of 2000 kg class and would be launched on the GSLV launcher to the geostationary orbits around 36,000 kilometers away. A satellite in the geostationary orbit covers a third of the Earth below, and 3 of them can provide a total coverage of any satellite which is there in the LEO. The next news is regarding the protecting power. You know that recently the killing of the Iranian military and the intelligence commander Major General Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad in a drone attack which was carried out by the United States troops. The Iranian government has registered its protest with the Swiss embassy which is lying in the Tehran. Now, why they have registered a protest in front of the Swiss embassy? Why Switzerland? Because Switzerland represents the interest of the US in Iran, right? So the interest of the US people is being represented by the Switzerland, where in the Iran. This is because the US itself does not have an embassy there. That is the reason. Iran's interest in the US, on the other hand, are represented by the Pakistan embassy in the Washington. Now, how one country can represent the another country? See, in an arrangement such as this, Switzerland is the protecting power of the United States interest in the Iran. How? The instrument of protecting power is provided under the 1961 and 1963 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So this is important for you from the examination perspective. Under which convention such type of protecting power is being provided? 1961 and 1963 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations basically provides the instruments of the protecting power. Now, what does this 1961 and 63 Vienna Convention talks about? Let's see that also. So 1961 Vienna Convention states that if a diplomatic relations are broken off between the two states, or if a mission is permanently or temporarily recalled, the sending state may entrust the protection of its interests and those of its nationals to the third state acceptable by to the receiving state. And 1963 Convention reiterates that a sending state may, with the prior consent of the receiving state and at the request of the third state which is not represented in receiving state, undertake the temporary protections of the interests of the third state and of its nationals. That is what the meaning of the word protecting power is there. So please remember these two conventions, which are very, very important from the examination perspective. The next news is regarding the scientific social responsibility policy. Currently the government of India is planning to prepare a policy on the scientific social responsibility on the sidelines of like corporate social responsibility, right? So India is going to possibly the first country in the world to implement a scientific social responsibility on the lines of the CSR. A draft of this new policy was recently made available by the Department of Science and Technology. Now, what is the major aim of this policy? Just to encourage the science and technology institutions and the individual scientists in the country to proactively engage in the science outreach activities, just to connect the science with the society, to also harness the latent potential of the scientific community for strengthening the linkages between the science and the society, and for making science and technology ecosystem more vibrant, more reachable, more accessible to the people of the country. It is also going to develop a mechanism for ensuring the access to the scientific knowledge, transferring the benefits of the science to meet the societal needs, promoting the collaborations, and to identify the problems and develop the solutions for the same. Now, there are certain highlights for this draft. You can read it on your own because as if now it is on a draft stage. We'll be waiting for it if the government comes out with the more detailed, you can say, points on this particular policy. The next news is regarding the curative petition. So recently you might have seen that one of the people who have been finally been convicted that they are going to be hanged, right, with respect to the Nirbhaya's gang rape case, the court has finally given a verdict that they are going to be hanged, right? So with respect to that, these people have filed a curative petition in the respective courts. So what is a curative petition? This is more important from the examination perspective, right? So let's see, it is the last judicial resort. So last means after this, there is no other means which is left for them to come in front of the judiciary and say that they have not committed anything, or judiciary may consider their judgment once again, right? So it is the last judicial resort which is available for the redressal of any grievance in the court, which is normally decided by the judges in chamber. Remember one thing, it is decided by the judges in chamber. That means open sessions, open court sessions are not there, open court hearings are not there. It is only in a very rare case that such petitions are given in an open court hearing. Otherwise, in chamber judgments are being given. The concept of this curative petition was first evolved by the Supreme Court of India in the matter of Rupa Ashok Hora versus Ashok Hora and ANR 2002, where the question was whether an aggrieved person is entitled to any relief against the final judgment or the order of the Supreme Court after the dismissal of the review petition, right? So when the judgment has been given, a review petition is being filed. When the review petition is also being dismissed, that means what? The judgment which was given by the Supreme Court is upheld, and that will be final. But it can also be that particular aggrieved person can also file a curative petition for the same. So whether that can be filed or not, that was being seen way back in 2002. The Supreme Court in the said case held that in order to prevent the abuse of its process and to cure the gross miscarriage of the justice, it may reconsider its judgment in the exercise of its inherent power. And for this purpose, the court has devised that what has termed as the name called as curative petition. Supreme Court ने साफ साफ कहा कि in order to prevent the abuse of its process and to cure the gross miscarriage of justice, means the principle of natural justice has not been given to you while delivering the verdict, while giving the final judgment or the order, it may reconsider its own judgment in the exercise of its inherent power. That means certain power has been given to the Supreme Court under the Constitution of India where they can reconsider their own judgment given by them, and many a times at many cases we have seen. Further, to entertain such curative petitions, the Supreme Court has laid down certain specific conditions. Now, what are those certain specific conditions? Like, the petitioner will have to establish that there was a genuine violation of the principle of natural justice and the fear of the bias of a judge and a judgment that has adversely affected that person. Second, the petition is going to state specifically what are the grounds which have been mentioned, had been taken in the review petition, and it was dismissed by the circulation. This petition will be sent to the 3 senior most judges and the judges of the bench who have passed the judgment affecting the petitions if available. If the majority of the judges on the above bench they agree that the matter needs the hearing, then it would be sending the same matter to the same bench as far as possible, and the court would impose an exemplary cost to the petitioner if the plea lacks the merit. Now, what are the constitutional provisions in this regard? Article number 137 of the Indian Constitution, subjects to the provision of the guidelines made under the article number 145, by which it is very much clear that the Supreme Court has an ability to review any judgment which is declared by it. So from the Indian polity perspective, this last paragraph is important. And yes, to entertain the curative petitions, these specific conditions are also important. They can be asked in a statement form in the examination. So please remember about this thing or this particular slide, very, very important from the examination perspective. The next news is regarding the Pravasiya Bharatiya Divas 2020. Remember one thing, Pravasiya Bharatiya Divas is celebrated every year on the 9th of January to mark the contribution of the overseas Indian community in the development of India. Now, why 9th of January is being selected? It could be 10th of January also, it could be 8th of January also. So 9th of January was chosen as a day to celebrate this occasion since on this day in 1915, Mahatma Gandhi returned to the India from the South Africa and eventually led the India's freedom struggle. Pravasiya Bharatiya Divas conventions have been held every year since 2003. These conventions provide a platform to the overseas Indian community. They can engage with the Indian government and the people of the India, you can say, and their respective ancestors for mutually beneficial activities. These conventions are very useful in networking among the overseas Indian community who are residing in the various parts of the world, enable them to share their experiences in the various fields wherever they are living. The next news is regarding the green credit scheme. The Forest Advisory Committee finally has approved the implementation of green credit scheme. What is the meaning of this? So this basically scheme will allow the forest to be treated as a commodity. It allows the forest department to outsource one of its responsibilities of reforesting to the non-government agencies. How this particular scheme will be implemented? The scheme will allow the agencies, could be a private companies, they could be a village forest communities, to identify the land, and then they will begin growing the plantation over there. After the period of 3 years, they would be eligible to be considered as a compensatory forest land if they meet the forest department's criteria. So suppose this is a group of people A, which is you can say it's a village forest community or the private companies. This is a forest department. Now forest department has to actually for this, you can say this is a piece of land where reforesting has to be done by the forest department. Now forest department has said that okay, we are going to engage any private company or any village forest community, they are actually going to do the reforesting over this piece of land. And after the period of 3 years, if they would be eligible to be considered as a compensatory forest land. Now they will be given a compensatory forest land somewhere else if they meet the forest department criteria. So how this particular scheme is going to actually help the Indian people? See, any industry which is needing the forest land, they could then approach the agency, they can pay for the parcels of such forested land, and then this would be transferred to the forest department and be recorded as a forested land. So this is the way how the industrial people, because industrial people need a lot of land for the construction of their respective industry. So they need to cut down the many trees for the same, for which they need to compensate to the government, right? There's a complete act which has been formed, CAMPA, compensatory money they have to give if they need to cut down the forest or the trees from the forested land. So this is a kind, you can say, a scheme which is allowing the forest to be traded as a commodity. It is allowing the forest department to outsource one of its own responsibilities of reforesting to the different non-government agencies. Remember one thing, the participating agencies will be free to trade its assets, that is their plantation in the parcels, with the project proponents who need the forest lands. What is the present scenario? In the current system, the industries needs to make a good the loss of the forest by finding an appropriate non-forest land equal to that which be raised. It also must pay the state forest department and the current economic equivalent, which is called as net present value of the forest land. It's then the forest department's responsibility to grow the appropriate vegetation that over the period of time would grow into the forest. This is not the first time such type of scheme has been mooted down. In 2015 also, a green credit scheme was for the degraded forest land with a public-private participation was recommended, but that scheme at that point of time was not approved by the Union Environment Minister, who was the final authority for approving this particular scheme. But this year, finally, the Forest Advisory Committee has approved the implementation of the green credit scheme. You should know what is the meaning of the green credit scheme from the examination perspective. The next news is regarding the Melon 2020. It's a defense exercise. It will be held in Visakhapatnam in March 2020. Melon stands for multilateral naval exercises. So different navies will be coming. It is a multilateral naval exercise which is aimed to enhance the professional interaction between the friendly foreign navies and learn from each other's strengths and the best practices in the maritime domain. Of the 41 navies which have been invited, confirmations from over 30 navies have been received so far towards the participation in the Melon 2020. This will be held in Visakhapatnam in the month of the March 2020. Before your prelims examination, this exercise would be conducted. Hence, it is very, very important from the examination perspective. This year's where this Melon exercise was being conducted. Same for the year 2019. This is your homework. Find it out, write it somewhere, and again it's a request from all the students that please on a piece of paper try to note down all the defense exercises, keep it in front of your table or somewhere wherever you are studying. Keep on revising those defense exercises. They are very, very important from the examination perspective. The next news is regarding the Sea Guardians 2020. So it's a joint naval drill exercise between Pakistan and China. India is not involved under the same. The very first option you will get India and China, right? In the examination, if they can give you, they will write you the first option as India and China. Your mind will never go that the naval exercises of the different countries, why they will be asked in the UPSC examinations, but they can be asked. So please remember, it's a naval drill. It's a joint naval drill between Pakistan and China. The latest edition has been held in Karachi. It is the 6th edition in this bilateral series. It will focus on augmenting the interoperability and the strategic cooperation. The next news is regarding the Operation Sankalp. It is a maritime security operations which is launched by the India to promptly respond to the emergency situations for the Indian sea vessels in the Middle East region. It has been launched in order to ensure the safe passage for the Indian flag vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Once again, I'd like to tell you that this particular strait has come a lot in the newspapers, in the news in the upcoming months, right? In the previous months, right? In the month of November also it was in news, in the month of December was also in news, and in the month of January again this is also in news, right? Because of the recent you can say situations which have been taken between US and Iran, right? This strait is again in news. So please remember the map of this area, all the you can say the neighboring countries, neighboring water bodies, any famous thing lying across this strait is very, very important. Moreover, the meaning of the word strait, this is also very important from the examination perspective, right? So these are the things which you need to focus on while reading the news, right? Operation Sankalp is one thing, but Strait of Hormuz is coming, so again and again, so you need to focus on this area also. And definitely we are expecting one question this year also from this particular strait in the upcoming prelims examination. So that's all from this today's edition of video series. Thank you for watching. If you have any queries, any questions, you can reach us out on our Facebook page, Chetan Gaurav. You can message me anytime. You will be getting a reply from our team. You can also write to us at madeeasygs@gmail.com for any of the queries for your preparations or anything. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube GS Made Easy channel, which is going to upload some few more exciting lessons on this particular preparation. And for downloading the study materials, daily newspaper analysis, and the other respective PDFs for your examination perspective, join our Telegram channel GS Made Easy for the same. That's all we have today in this edition of video series. We are going to have some more news in the upcoming time. Bye bye, take care, see you soon in the next class. That's all we have today in this edition of video series. Thank you very much. Keep on watching GS Made Easy channel for more updates.